Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Christa Gurka, and we have a great guest episode today. I love my guest episodes. I love having people on, especially when there are other powerful women that just are going to be able to give it to you straight today. It's going to be a great, great episode. So we have Danielle Stead Blanton here. And if you saw some of my Instagram posts recently, I had her come in and talk as the monthly expert to our My FitBiz Accelerator group. She is the founder of DSB Legal, where she and her female-led team serve as fractional general counsel to female-founded businesses. I love this, at the intersection of tech and health and wellness. She co-owns a real estate investment business and emerging investment fund focusing on angel investing and advising early stage business to prime for scale and exit. She's a former Nike sponsored athlete, big law dropout, exited multi-location fitness studio owner, and toddler boy mom. The best thing in your entire bio. She came to talk to my team, not my team, the other business owners, all about kind of legal in this industry, health and wellness, how to protect your business, how to protect your employees. And I just love how you really articulate and relay information, which is really just shoot from the hip, which is kind of how I am as well. Why beat around the bush? Why not just give it to people straight, whether they like the information or not? And so thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. I just think this is going to be super, super valuable for all my listeners.
Thank you for having me. What a fun introduction. Like,
It's
best part of my day already.
I hope so. I hope so. Like I said, I hope this is literally the hardest thing you have to do all day because it'll be super, super
Preach,
easy, which means the rest of your day will be
preach.
good. So, why don't you give a little bit of background? Obviously, you went to law school and passed the bar and worked for big law at one point. So, did you know that you always wanted to be an attorney? Like, how did that actually transpire?
I love whenever we talk about Danielle's a lawyer and people are always like, "Are you a real lawyer?" And I'm like, "Who are the fake lawyers out
I
there?"
know.
That's
Where are the
that's
fake?
my
No, but
first
I just play one
question.
on TV, right?
Yes, I play one on TV, on the internet. No, you know what's funny, Krista, is I actually always wanted to go into PR. I wanted to go into
Mm.
PR marketing. I actually got a job right out of college working for Hearst Publication. I worked for Harper's Bazaar in 2008. You can all do the math. And that was also, for those who were around, the great 2008 recession. The magazine industry crumbled before my eyes, and I was left without a career path. And my parents were, who are achievers in every sense of the word, were like, you should just really go to law school. Because I didn't have the stomach to be doctors like they are. They were like, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a consultant, right? Those are your four choices when you're like an immigrant child. And so I decided to go to law school because Elle Woods could do it. It didn't seem that hard. It was the hardest, most awful thing I ever did. I recommend it to no one, 0 stars. And you're still in this achiever mindset. I was a collegiate athlete. You do the things you're supposed to do, right? I think a lot of women, especially women business owners, very much resonate with that, where you're on this path because you don't know what other path to be on because this is what you're told being good is or being successful is. And I almost failed out of law school. I always like to tell people that because I think it's important to know that I'm a very flawed person. We all are. We all screw up on our path. And then I magically got a job in big law, which is also 0 stars. Don't recommend. It's as bad as everyone says it is on TV. It's soul sucking. It's crushing. If it's for you and you're listening to this, I'm very sorry if I'm yucking on your yum. And you know what? I was 30 years old by that. And then I was just like, this cannot be how I spend the next 50 years of my life. It's too short. So
Life is way too short for that. And I do like how you said, I always love listening to people's origin story. I really do. Because I think some people just think that you pop out of the box this way. And you're like, God, no, there's such a windy road, but it's also sometimes very organic, right? I say that I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I also am from an immigrant family. My mom never went to, because my mom, we're on the other side. My mom never went to college. So
mhm.
just going to college for me was like achieving in my family. And so I never had entrepreneurship modeled for me. I fell into it because I was like, oh, there's And I opened my business in 2008. So that was fun.
Ooh.
But I tell people this, I was like, I was too young and broke to really understand what was going on. And when people kept asking me why or how are you doing, I thought they were asking me sincerely because I had two small kids at home and I had just started a business. I had no idea that there was like this huge financial crisis that was happening around me because people were just being like, are you okay? What's going to
You're like,
happen?
no,
I
I'm
was like,
not.
yeah, things are cool. But so what was the turn or the precipice for you that you were like, I need out? And the whatever pivot ended you where you are today?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. You talk about this pivot. And one of the reason I work with female founders is and this is like part of my villain origin story. I am Asian woman and I worked in M&A, which in big law means you are one of none. That
Mhm.
didn't exist. And so a male dominated team. I was the only woman, I was the only person of color, and I just saw truly what the old boys club looked like. And when I tell you stories of what that was like I had a partner who, and by partner, who I reported to, not romantically, who had such rage issues, he threw a chair through a conference room window one day, just threw a chair. And we were all just expected to sit there. This is not normal. And then everyone looks at you because you're the woman and they're like, are you going to clean that up? And you're just like, are you freaking kidding me? And so it was always just so clear that I was never going to be, I'm a little mouthy. I have a little attitude about me. I'm never going to be this like, yes, sir, thank you for this opportunity to clean up the glass wall that you broke because you can't control your emotions. And that was really this huge turning point for me. On top of it, I had severe anxiety. I was a physical manifestation of unwell. I had acne, I had gained weight, and this lovely man who I'm now married to for 10 years a few weeks ago was like, I love you. I want to spend my life with you. This is not your best self. This is not what your whole life is going to be. Let's figure this out for you. And so we structured an exit plan for me out of this path. And I took a lot of time to figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And luckily, we were in both the financial and life position to do that together at that point, which I recognize is a huge privilege. And I spent a lot of time at the gym. That's what one does when they were unemployed here in Los Angeles. I belong to Equinox. They are a fitness club people might have heard of. And Equinox was like, you're here all day. You're taking classes, you're hanging out, you have a cool vibe. Do you want to teach here? And they actually brought me into their instructor training program and taught me how to be an instructor. And at first, I was like, I'm not a fitness person. I'm an attorney. That was my
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
identity as an achiever. And again, I think a lot of women who left corporate are always holding on to that corporate title. They're always like, I have a lot of clients who are like, I was a COO of a trust fund, or I was a CIO of this. And I was like, great, you're now a Pilates studio owner. Accept your this awesome new version of yourself. And I really struggled with that identity shift, except it then became this thing that I knew how to start like actually run businesses because I was a corporate person. So I would go audition. I remember, I can tell you all these studios in Los Angeles, I would go audition for, and I'd be like, if you hire me, I will fix your contracts. If you hire me, I'll review your lease for free. I was so desperate to belong again. And the only way I knew how to belong was through my brain. And so I was like bartering my legal services if you would just let me audition, even, which is hysterical when you think about that now.
I
And
wish you would have been in Miami. I would have been like, yes, check. Yes, come right now. Do whatever you want. I don't care. You can redo my contracts. You can do it. Yes.
Krista, you know what it was like, and let's call it 2016, 17. Nobody
Yeah.
even cared about contracts and nobody cared about leases. Nobody was thinking about how to classify their team members. It was just put as many people in a studio as possible and just survive because nobody was really running fitness businesses like businesses. They were running them like hobbies that just made them money at that point.
The glory
And
days.
those were like the crazy days. And then all of a sudden, this huge transition happened. You lived through it when PE came in and PE bought Soul Cycle and PE started buying up Orange Theories and CrossFits. And suddenly everyone was like wanting to run a business as a business. And it just happened that I was in Los Angeles, the fitness capital during this time. And somebody told somebody who's somebody and was like, you can review a contract for me. And I was like, yes, I can. And then I did a contract. And then I got put in touch with a group of people who are opening a studio that I invested into. And then something else. And it was very organic where you're in the right place at the right time, but also every moment of your life prepared you to be the right person to be in that right place. If
You have
that,
to be ready is what I
yes,
believe. Do you know what
thank
I'm
you.
saying? And so you, yes, some people say it's luck. I also believe we're in the right place at the right time for the right reason, but we also have to be ready for that opportunity. And you were ready for that opportunity. If you think we're both athletes, if you think of the higher you get in sports, sometimes it's the less you play. Think about guys that just try to get drafted who
Yeah.
have been the best at their thing forever and ever and then don't get drafted. It's the first time probably in their life they ever heard no. So as you go further along in sports, you might be at the end of the bench and you
Mhm.
have to be ready for when your coach turns around or yells your name, you have to be like ready to go. Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe, he was ready
Yeah.
when he got hurt and he became the
Yeah.
best quarterback in the NFL. So, yes, I agree that it is sometimes it's the right connection. That's why it's never always about the immediate sale. It's who did you meet and impress and have a conversation with that maybe even 6 months down the road is going to mention your name in a room again. But you,
Yeah.
Danielle, also had to be ready for that opportunity and you had to bet on yourself. And so that I think is important for women, especially to know. Our names get called less than men, although I feel very fortunate that somebody posted I don't know if you saw this on Instagram the other day, that somebody posted, I'm not going to mention her name because I actually know her and I respect her a lot, but she posted some of the women's groups are mean girl groups. And I was like, I just want to say I've been super, super fortunate. I can totally see how that happens, but I've been so fortunate that the gr rooms that I have been in have been nothing but kind to me. And it's not the level of our business. It wasn't the level of our exit. Everyone was there to help each other. And I just felt so grateful for that opportunity and to meet people like you. Felicia was one of the ones that was in the room with me. And I can see it makes me sad when women are like, I was in this room and it was mean girls. It just makes me sad. And the Pilates industry, unfortunately, is filled with them. It's sad.
Well, to your point about that, and again, this is our experience. I like to preface to people because some people all say that and they're just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I think that's fabulous. Is that it's already harder for us. We
Mhm.
already get women get 2% of venture capital. Women of color get half of that. It's already harder for us. Why are we making it harder on ourselves? Like, why are we working against our own best interests? And that's what I always find to be so funny. And so people talk about, for example, for me, they're like, who's your competition? Who are other women doing this? And I was like, I don't look at other women as my
I don't
competition.
care.
I look at other men who don't even have to try a third of hard as I have to be taken half as seriously. That's my competition. Those other women that are doing it, like I will drag you up with me. But I think that's something that I see a lot in this industry that does make me really sad. And I think that's also something that we are huge on vibes at our firm. And like, really, like, we don't foster that. I don't mean just in our firm, we don't foster that with our clients. If
Yeah.
you come to us and you're like, I know so and so's doing this and I want to do it better than them or take them down, I'm just like, great, here's five other people who might entertain your bad attitude. But like, we don't believe in that here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It does sad. And honestly, it's a lot in the Pilates industry, which is really, we have one member in our group who actually said that she's an owner of a Pilates studio. She went to another Pilates studio to take class and they told her she couldn't come.
that's pretty common.
I know, but it's first of all, I was like, it's illegal to tell you can't come because you're like banned because you own a studio, number one. Number two, who cares? I just feel, and I've said this a lot, I have a lot of soapboxes, but if you spent a quarter of the time worried about your own business and experience and took all of that energy that you were saying, so and so you can't come to the studio because you're another owner, and focused on the right stuff, your
Mhm.
business would be leaps and bounds ahead of where it is. You're using that energy to focus on the wrong shit, and it's just stupid. More, there are 350 million Americans alone, just in the United States. There is enough business for everyone to go around, especially in the Pilates world, even though now there are more and more bigger studios, but still, there's plenty of business out there. There is no need, none, to backstab, to cheat, to downgrade other people's business. There's no need. Now, I'm not saying you have to open your books and pee and trade secrets, whatever, but you also don't have to push people out. I love when other studios come to my studio, like other studio owners. We had 2 studio owners from Miami in my mentorship group. And I was like, this is fine. We're all good. There's plenty of business for us to go around. That's just my feeling. And it's one of the reasons I like bringing women like you on, because I think you value that as well. I guess we could talk about this for an hour, but let's talk actually about the law. Let's just lean right into 1099s and W-2s, because my post that I shared of our conversation last week, I want to ask you some questions, because I got a bunch of questions from people and I just stopped responding because I was like, listen, if you want to fight for your reasons not to believe in this, I don't care, go do you. But it's not false information that we're putting out. Let's talk about 1099s versus W-2s. When I opened my studio in 2008, everyone in fitness was a 1099. It just was how it was. Everyone in fitness was a 1099. And I even think in California, you might have been able to be a 1099, but I'm not going to go down on that. I'm not 100% sure. But there are different states are more lax than others. But can you just give like the legal there's a legal classification and then there's the IRS classification, but relatively they're both saying what in terms of who qualifies as a 1099 versus a W-2?
Yeah. The most simple way to look at this are 3 words: the means, the manner, and the method of which someone is working, and your control over their means, their manner, the method. So break it down. If you are a business owner and you are controlling, dictating, strongly suggesting how someone is working, meaning they're showing up at a certain time, they're teaching a sequence, they're using your equipment, the manner which they're doing it, are they using your vocabulary that you train them in? Again, are you doing a proprietary flow, like you always start with core and then you go to the left leg? And then are you telling them to clock in at a certain time? Are you telling them that they show up every Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Do they have a consistent schedule? Did they set their own rates, or did you tell them how much they're going to get paid for it? If you are doing any of those things, by law, black and white, that person should be an employee. Now, anyone who's ever worked with me has heard me say this before. They're going to roll their eyes. As I always say, the law of black and white, we get to choose where in this gray area we live, right? My job is to keep you as above board in your gray area, but my job is also to tell you what the black and white is, and you get to take on that risk. And I want to make that very clear. I like to make this analogy of speeding. We all can relate to this, right? The speed limit says 35. In California, it's 65 on a freeway. Black and white, 65. How many of us actually only go 65 on a freeway? Not I. I know that for certain. I'm somewhere in the 75 range. Like, I'll wholly own that. That is the gray area I'm choosing to live in. And so it's funny because I actually haven't read any of these comments, but when people want to start engaging in this dialogue, I'm not going to engage with you your desire to go 65. I'm going to tell you that the speed sign posted on the freeway says 65. That's all I'm going to say. And I think that's where we're getting really tripped up. And also, you're not a bad person for going 75. I don't judge you for going 75. I'm just saying that if there's a police officer there that has nothing else to do, we are all in the wrong. And to then liken it to studio owners, if there is an IRS audit, if there is a workers' comp audit, if there is a State Department of Labor audit, it is black and white. And I think that's where people are just getting really upset, is that I'm not telling you you're wrong or you're a bad person or anything. I'm just telling you that you're not falling in within the legal boundaries of where you could get yourself into hot water. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some of the bigger one, because some people, the argument is, no, they just have a class, it's 10 o'clock, they don't clock in or anything out. But one of the things that I think is really clear, do you set the rates?
Yep.
Do you take the payments?
Yep.
So they don't negotiate the rate with their person. you set the rate, you set the rate of what you pay them, and you take the payment, etc. Right? That's like a big thing where people are like, I'm like, no, but you set the rates. So let's now talk about, by the way, the fourth thing that could happen besides the audits, somebody on their team at some point could say, I want to have an audit to sue them for misclassification for whatever reason. And by the way, you could think that would never happen to me. I would never have those people on my team. Sometimes it's the people that you would least expect, people that you've had at your home for dinner, people that you've shared celebrations with could make this happen. And so now let's talk about what the repercussions are. So what does that mean? They're not going to jail, but what does that mean for the future of their business?
One step back, because I didn't
Of
say
course,
something
of
that's like
course.
actually the most important thing. So you mentioned there's two ways to look at who's an independent contractor. There's the IRS definition and then there's the labor definitions. The number one thing that we didn't talk about is the way we look at someone who should be an employee versus a contractor is, are they doing work that is the nature
Of
of
the
your
business, right?
business? And for example, the nature of the work of my business is a law firm. If I have someone that's working for me as a lawyer, they need to be an employee. My social media person is not an employee. My social or podcast editor is not an employee, right? Like
Bookkeeper might not be
bookkeeper
an
is not
employee.
an employee. Your lawyer is not an employee, but the people who are doing the work that is the nature of your business. If you are a Pilates studio, your Pilates instructors are doing the nature of your business. That's an employee. And that's the number one test that the labor organizations are looking at. And so I think that's something where, again, people are like, I let them choose the rate for their private, or I let them pick their class schedule. It still doesn't matter if they don't pass that basic service test.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, okay,
Right.
that's that.
You're
So,
absolutely right. That is another very clear point. Yeah.
so to your point though, I think, listen, as somebody who is absolutely terrified of getting in trouble all the time, that's me. One of the things people are always are like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And so what's the worst thing that can happen is Krista just said, you have an employee, you have a team member who honestly is just either wronged or just that person, and they can report you and report you for misclassification, you get audited. If you get audited, the lightest thing you're going to get is a slap on the wrist, but you're still going to spend a crap load of time preparing your books. Audits look back to at least 3 years. So you're going to have to do 3 years of payroll, 3 years of operations, 3 years of contracts, 3 years of every person that's ever worked for you, in addition to pulling timesheets for 3 years worth of people. And I know some of you are like, oh, it's all in the system. Great. I don't know about you. I don't have time to wash my hair on a weekly basis. I don't have time to do this, right? That's number one. Number two is there are statutory fines. So misclassification includes a statutory fine per person. Every state has a different fine. It can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per person who you've misclassified, as just the slap on your wrist that gets paid to the government agency. So that really sucks. And then now what happens is if you've misclassified somebody, you actually are going to owe the back taxes and back wages and maybe even back benefits for those people. So the fact that we all don't want to pay payroll taxes, now you're going to have to take your entire team's worth of payroll taxes back 3 years and pay all of that. You're going to have to pay back whatever other taxes you owe, pay back that times 3 years. You're going to have that $5,000 to $10,000 per person due immediately. And a lot of these things are crushing. Nobody has a slush fund that can really take that into account. You're not going to get your business shut down. You're not going to get sent to jail. You're going to get a huge, massive financial penalty that will crush.
And that's usually what closes businesses. It's not that they tell you have to shut down and they're not taking you away in handcuffs. However, if you have to pay, if you get all of those fines, and you're right, businesses don't have, unless you're like these conglomerates who don't break the law that way for the most part, you're not going to be able to afford it, right?
Yeah.
That's what closes your business down. It's not that it's so illegal that they come and put chains on your door. It's just that you just can't afford it. You have to shut down. So let's now talk about, let's just take it now one step further. Okay. Let's take it that a business owner wants to eventually sell their business. So well, maybe you could correct me, you could give me an opinion, but most sales, the buyer oftentimes needs financing. Okay.
Yeah.
There's not as many. It's like buying a house, right? There's maybe a few people that can put a cash offer, but the majority of people buying house need financing from the bank. When the bank evaluates your business to decide if they're going to give a loan to these people, they can see that this is a liability on the books, and it will be very hard for the bank to say, we're going to loan you this money because they have this huge liability on the books. Would you say that is accurate or not so accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're going to buy or sell a business, we have a sale readiness practice that we go through and we audit you through. And on the buyer side, if you're going to buy a business and you're financing it, your bank is going to put contingencies. They're going to put requirements on it. It's very similar to if you've ever bought a house. They're like, hey, you got to pay down that credit card, or hey, you got to take care of
Mhm.
this or that, right? The bank is going to require that all these people become employees, because the bank cannot afford for you to get audited and default. And so what's going to happen is in your purchase documents, you're actually going to have to put in limitations of liability, and you're going to have to put in what's called indemnities. And basically, the seller, the person who misclassified the workers, is going to have to be on the hook and responsible for any and all labor claims as of the date of close previous. Meaning, if somebody comes back and is like, what do you mean I'm converting to an employee? I should have been an employee the whole time, and then wants to cause a stink about it. The new owners have no liability. They're off the hook. The old owners are assuming that liability. That's a huge thing to carry with you as an owner, by the way. And what we usually do, and fun fact, we had 3 transactions last week in our firm. We bought, we sold, and we did an investment. We know a lot about putting these representations and liability guardrails into contracts. But you, as the seller, are thinking, I'm getting this payout, I'm done,
Yeah.
goodbye, gonna go retire. No, you are gonna have this looming thing for 3 to 5 years that you are on the hook for injuries, you are on the hook for employees, you are on the hook for everything. And unless you have a really good lawyer, your liability for that is going to be very high, potentially very high. In our case, we try to cap it at a certain number so you're not paying out millions, but only 100,000 or whatever that number is. But also, here's the next step is you're like, I have insurance. Insurance is going to take care of me. Insurance doesn't take care of you for being a dumbass. There's your soundbite. Please listen to that, because people come to me all the time, and I'm going to veer off track here, and they're going to be like, I don't need a liability waiver. And I have insurance. Insurance isn't going to cover what your liability waiver doesn't cover.
Mhm.
Insurance isn't going to cover you if you've misclassified employees and they told you that they should be employees. Insurance isn't going to cover you if you're a ding dong and you are not making good business decisions, you can't just assume your insurance is going to get you back. So now you're back to carrying this stress for years of just hoping that no one comes after you. That's a terrible retirement plan.
Yeah. Plus, buyers, for sure. I think a lot of sellers like that negotiation, by the way, like the reps and warranties, like on my sale, took a very long time. But buyers also are not going to want to buy into a business oftentimes that has 1099s, because they're like, there's no like buy-in from these people. Like, how did they're gonna, what's to keep them from leaving? So it's just something to consider, people. I just want the owners. And by the way, this is something that I changed my mind on, the same way I have changed my mind on passing on credit card fees. But when I first started my business, I was like, 1099s. Everyone's a 1099. And I rode that wave until I literally almost got sued, and then had a really difficult slap in the face. And so, yes, you consider, oh, it's so expensive. I have to pay all this stuff. But also, there's a lot of positive to it. You can offer your people time off and sick time and health benefits if you can afford that. And you also get buy-in from your people. So the way that I tell business owners, I'm like, if you think about, most business owners want just like total buy-in from their team. I want you to eat, sleep, and breathe Pilates in the Grove. You like do so much. So on one hand, they're like, just give. But on the other hand, they're like, and I don't want to make you an employee. So I don't want you to ask for vacation, but I don't want to pay your taxes. So, like, you're sending out two different messages to the universe, right? And you can create brand loyalty, you can create standards, you can create a lot of things when you have W-2 employees. And that doesn't mean they have to be on a salary. They can be hourly employees. Okay.
Yep.
They can be part time. They can be
Yep.
2 hours a week. They
Yep.
don't, I think some people think, oh, now I have to offer them a full salary. No, they can be our Pilates in the Groves instructors were hourly employees. And then they did get a rate for when they were not direct client facing.
Admin. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had instructors that were making 6 figures a year and had health benefits and had paid time off and had continuing education stipend. And what you want as a business owner is you want people that want to work. You want people that want this as a career. You want to attract those kind of people. And being a W-2 allows you to do that. So I hope business owners can see from like just the day to day all the way, extrapolate all the way out to like sale, this is the right move to make.
You know what you said two things I think are really important to hit on. One is you said people can work from you for 2 hours a week. The biggest objection I always get from clients is they're like, I have all these employees that work 2 hours a week, so it's not worth it. And I'm like, what's not worth it? And they're like, it's not worth it for just 2 hours a week. And I was like, well, give me a number that it is worth then. Is it 5 hours? Is it 10 hours? It is an absolute farce to say, oh, 2 hours does not make worth it them being an employee. Are they still getting an instructor manual? Are they still getting this proprietary training? Do you still want them to teach this very certain thing? That's where I always go back to. And so it's just funny to me because at some point, some Facebook group told people, oh,
I
if
know.
they're here for less than 2 to 5 hours, it doesn't matter. And I'm just like, if you want to bring me an argument, make it make sense. Give me a thoughtful
Make it
argument, but
make
like
sense.
that one's not a thoughtful one. And I think that's something that we just need to scream from the mountaintops. Like, that's not a real argument. Oh, 2 hours isn't worth it. It's not worth it. Because by the way, that fine per person isn't the amount of hours they worked. It's per person.
Person.
So that $10,000 fine for your 2 hours is the same as your $10,000 for your full-time employee. Let's just remind you of that bit. But it's funny because you said that and I just thought about it. But the other thing I think that is happening a lot right now is everyone, and this is not targeted at any one person or studio. Everyone is creating their own, I'm doing quote unquote for the listeners, quote unquote, creating their own method on a mat in a heated room or not, with a red light panel or not. And listen, if we can't poke fun of this industry, no one else can, right? But everyone is coming to me and they're just like, this is my new method. I made it. No one is doing this. And I was like, interesting.
Okay.
You invented fitness. Okay, cool. Right. But if this is the case, I am your biggest supporter. But you also then are training your team on doing something very specific. And that means, oh, well, we're doing movements like no one's ever done movements before. Girlfriend, you better patent that. You better trademark that. You better you better protect it, is what I'm trying to say. And so how do you protect teaching an independent contractor something you really
Can't.
can't? Right? You can't. It's a lot harder. And so then you see all these copycat studios and people are like, I invented that
That
kneeling
breathing
kick
technique.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just like, okay, how did you protect it? And so if you have decided that you are creating something so new and innovative and so special, no one else has done it before, the number one way to protect yourself is to go to the source with your employees. Because in employees, we can call it a trade secret. We can
Yep.
call it proprietary business information. Employees are held to a different standard than contractors are by law for a reason, because we don't want to hold contractors to these really strict trade secret informations and all of this stuff, because we want them to be free to go do whatever they want. So you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, of, oh, they're a contractor. Oh, but you can't go teach at another studio. You can't teach anyone what you learned here. You can't do
No.
that. Doesn't work.
I love how you make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But that actually is a really good segue, I think, to another question I get often, which is trademarking.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about trade. Let's just maybe, can you give a reason why someone would pursue trademarking?
Okay,
And what
so
does trademark actually mean?
Yeah, these are great questions. So there's three forms of intellectual property that you're going to hear us talk about. You have copyright, trademark, and patent. For most of our purposes, patent doesn't apply. Patents relate to formulas, and unless you are like creating a protein powder, don't worry about patent.
Yeah.
Copyright
Or
is going
maybe
to
designed a new piece of Pilates equipment that you could get
Pilates
patented.
equipment,
Yeah.
like one of my dear friends. Yes,
Yeah.
patentable. So there you go. So copyright is going to apply to what we call original works of authorship. You can, fun fact, copyright a training manual. We can talk about that. Trademark is going to be what you use to protect a name or a slogan or a logo so that nobody else can have it. Now we talk about name and we talk about protecting the words itself. Now, trademarking is the actual legal act of owning words or names together that are wholly yours. And so when you think about the fact that you get to own part of the English language, that's wild to me. And people are trademarking these days like they're buying coffees. Everyone wants to trademark everything. I want to trademark brown hair. I want to trademark this podcast. It is insane to me. And so one of the things is I think it is very important if you are creating a brand that you are trying to do it under the auspice of protecting yourself every step possible. That would include protecting your name. However, and again, this is said with so much love to our own industry. It's like you can pick on your own siblings, but nobody can mess with your siblings. The number of form that go into trademarks, the number of times people use the word collective in trademarks, the number of times people use method, align, uplift, empower. I say this with all love because I have 17 clients who are going to fall under this umbrella, but they're very common words, is what I'm saying, my friends. And so when you're going to protect your brand, please be aware that if you pick very similar words, it's going to be harder, or people are going to have come before you and they're going to already own it. So one of the biggest things I really suggest for people is when you're thinking about trademarking is truly pick a unique name that is specific to just you. You're not just like Danielle's Fitness Club. That's actually not even trademarkable. Or Los Angeles Pilates. Again, not trademarkable. And so I think a lot of people want to pick names that they think are super attractive to the greater good or the common person. And in doing that, you're actually making your brand unprotectable.
Yeah. Pilates in the Grove was actually not trademarkable because in the Grove is a location.
Location.
Yeah.
So here's a fun tip for everyone. What Christa just said is if you have a location in your name, so Los Angeles, at the Grove, etc., the location itself makes it almost untrademarkable unless you spend 5 years trying to establish distinctiveness, which we can talk about separately. And then words like Pilates or sculpt or strength are also not because they're so common. And what the US Trademark Office is saying is that these words are so common, we can't let you just own the most common words in a very specific industry.
Yeah. There's also the very famous Pilates trademark lawsuit, which went on for many years, which is why people thought Pilates started in the 2000s, because for a period of time, people could not use the term Pilates because it was under lawsuit. Anyways, you can Google it. It's a very interesting lawsuit. They lost anyways, which is why Pilates, but Pilates has been around for over a century. So let's take it now. I get that. So now let's say somebody does trademark. Okay, let's say somebody does get their name trademarked. They've gone through the process. Now the next thing is you actually have to enforce the trademark. So what does enforcing the trademark look like to these two people?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell a story about this, and it's just this is showbiz. So enforcing the trademark, and I had to explain this to somebody recently where I don't say things because I'm the villain. I don't say things because I'm saying things because this is just the law. And like, I chose a career where this is my job. My job is to say the hard things, right? And so enforcing the trademark means if somebody is operating with your same name, you actually have to go out there and send them a very kind or very strict cease and desist letter to stop using your name because they are violating and infringing upon your intellectual property. Their use of it literally violates your ownership of it. Think of it that way. And so what we do is we have definitely sent out our fair share of cease and desists. We've also had to defend our fair share of cease and desists because the fitness industry has so many common words and names and phrases. But this is actually a story. I'm going to try really hard to redact all confidential information, but this was like one of the worst, lowest moments of my career, truly, is I have a client who has a very successful brand, multi-location, investors, etc. And we found out that there was a studio that was opening that was using basically her exact same name, but spelling it slightly differently. Fun fact to all of our listeners, phonetic pronunciations matter. And so I
Yeah.
know that right now people are trying to get funky and fun with words and how we spell them, maybe spell stronger without any of your vowels and just do GR for GR. Like it is all the same. And so somebody opened a studio with the exact same name, phonetic pronunciation as a client of ours, and they announced grand opening. A lot of my clients will put their brand names under a Google alert. So if anything comes up,
Mhm.
they get alerted of it. And my client sent this to me and was just like, what do we do? And I said, you have to either decide if you're going to let them coexist, which I don't suggest you do, or you're going to have to shut them down. And that's my unpleasant task to do. And we got to do it. So I had to reach out to this person the week of Thanksgiving and tell her that her grand opening the following week, which also don't open a studio between Thanksgiving and Christmas, guys, but the following week could not open because she's violating trademark. And she said to me, I've just invested tens of thousands of dollars in merchandise. I've invested this much money in signage. I have URLs. And I said, I really appreciate all that you're doing into this. You are 1,000% violating our trademark. And
Mhm.
she agreed and she asked for us to, and you know how the story ends.
Yep.
And then basically she told me I was a horrible person and I can go somewhere because I ruined her holiday. And I said, I agree with you about that. And I'm very sorry that I had to be the messenger, because I didn't do anything wrong here. And
Right.
so one of the things that we really strongly recommend when people are coming to us because they have an idea to start a business, run
Look it up.
thank you. But don't just, and here's the thing, Krista, don't just Google it and decide no one has your name. Don't go into USPTO and do a quick search and tell me that you searched the database. I'm not trying to generate bill. Everyone who works with us knows we are not trying to charge you for work we're not doing. But you searching USPTO is not a search. And I think that's a huge fallacy that people have. And so people will be like, I already looked and nothing's there. And I was like, I have a whole team of people that are going to tell you you're completely wrong, but that's just our opinion. And hire us for a half hour, go
Yeah.
through your name with you, take this. And then what you do is you file what's called an intent to use. It is when you literally hold a name, you have a legal hold on a name for you. You don't have to open your business yet. You don't have to use it yet, but nobody else can use it now because you've put dibs on it, for lack of better terms. But people are starting businesses being like, I love this name. It's such a great name. And I'm like, 17,000 other people have this name or
Yep.
have a similar one. And before you open an LLC, before you put a name on a lease, before you invest in branding, because people love spending tens of thousands of dollars on that, and then none of it applies.
Yep.
And the other kind of thing that we see happening is logos, is owners get all excited about a logo. They spend all this money on a logo with a designer. They file the logo with USPTO, and then they decide to rebrand. And when you rebrand, the only thing you can keep is your name. So any element of the
Yeah.
logo that's changed is not protected anymore. And we've had clients that are like so bummed about the money, really, at the end of the day. It's a lot of
Yep.
money, guys. I don't want you wasting that.
Yeah. No, I know. And it's why I like to put this information out there, because it's not something everyone knows. And I just want women that run these businesses and own these businesses to just have some better information for them, right? And have a resource where they can reach out to you and be like, hey, can I? And again, there's nothing I hate more than in a Facebook group where someone's, oh, so I'm going to buy a business or I'm starting a business. And what do you think about? And I'm like, please don't skimp on an attorney. I get it. Sometimes when I look at my attorney's fees or my accountant's fees, I'm like, are we on the clock or off the clock? Because I'll ask about your kids later when we're like on personal time. But if we're on but the, what's the word I'm trying to find out? The consequence of not using a professional is way greater, right? So does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Yes, attorneys are expensive, accountants are expensive, but so is not using them. And so are you going to pay up front to do it right and properly and have peace of mind? Or are you going to struggle 5 years down the road because someone is suing you for something, or you have to rebrand, or your contracts are not, you don't have the right employee handbook or the employee contracts. And so it's better just to spend the money up front with someone like Danielle, who really knows this industry and understands what it's also like to own a business and is a female. And so it's just, I hate that in the Facebook group. I'm like, please don't take advice from the people in the Facebook group. Please hire an attorney. Please.
One, nothing like literally lights a fire like the mention of the Facebook groups because it's in every industry, right? And
In
so
every
it
industry.
just it's insane. But one of the things I always remind people of is that one, illegal is an investment. This is not $1,000 bottle of wine that you're going to savor once and then never remember again, right? Think of it this way. Your lease, your lifetime value of your lease is $1 million, depending on who you are, where you are. So
Mhm.
it's somewhere in the high 500,000s. Some of my leases are $10 million because they're longer, they're bigger
Mhm.
properties. So there's that, that's your lease. You're going to spend $100,000 on equipment, most likely, right? You're going to spend, some of my clients are spending $1 million on a build out.
Yeah.
Think about how much money this is
Don't
right now, guys.
recommend, but anyways.
No, we don't recommend that. That's okay. We don't judge. We don't judge, right? Think about how much money you are investing.
I
That's the
know.
word I always
I
go back
know.
to. You are investing into just getting into the space itself, right? It's also one of the reasons I go really hard on get a lawyer to read your lease. You're in it for 5 to 10 years. It's 500 to $1 million of a lifetime value. Anyways, think about all these areas you're investing in: the lease, the build out, the equipment, the branding. We all love spending 10 grand on branding. I just love branding people, but that's always one. The website is another 5 to 10. You have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to open a brick and mortar studio. You don't want to spend five on an attorney. Like that's
Agreed.
where I always just get, and people are like, huh? And I'm like, can you spend $5,000 on an attorney and protect the lease, protect your clients, protect your employees, protect yourself? Like, what if that's all it cost? Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be more or less here or there, depending on what we're adding in or what we're not doing. But can you think about that bigger picture? That you have created this ecosystem. Now, what if we can literally put a shield around that ecosystem? It's a pretty small investment considering everything else
Totally.
you're paying for. And I think that's where I just get very like this about is I'm just like, you're willing to spend so much money on everything else, guys. This
I
is
know.
not the last stop to be like, pass.
Agreed. Agreed. And especially for those of you that have partners, get an operating agreement. You need a partnership
Mhm.
agreement. It's friends now and it's lovely, but partnership dissolutions are like a divorce. It's really bad. I've been through one. It's not
Same,
great.
same.
And same in my lease. Like I had an exclusivity clause in my lease that's almost similarly to what you had to do. They were starting a business upstairs from me. And I happened to see the owner in the garage one day. And I was like, oh my gosh, welcome to the building. We're so excited. What kind of business are you going to have? And she was like, oh, we're doing yoga and Pilates. And I was like, really? They had already started the build out. They were probably 100 grand in. And I called my landlord and I said, I have exclusivity. And they're like, you have Pilates exclusivity. I said, actually, I have fitness, physical therapy, yoga, I have all fitness. And I don't believe that's true. I've been in the building for 10 years. So he looked and can I take you out to lunch? I was like,
You're like,
I did. I was like, you can absolutely take me out to lunch. But and here's what's going to have to happen. I either have to go to them and tell them they have to be out
yes,
because you're right, or what can we do? And I was like, okay, here's what we can do. I want another 10 years on my lease at today's current market. And they will take the yoga exclusivity out, but everything else stays. And I was like, that's what I'm happy with. And so again, but just being smart enough to understand your contracts, understand what's happening. Contracts are there for a reason. They're there to protect you. And it's a reason why I had a good person help me negotiate my lease in the first place. So tell everyone now where they can find you and your services, because if you actually, Danielle is listed on my website as a preferred vendor.
yeah.
So I know christagurka.com under recommended vendors, but give them your direct, like, where should they find you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I live on Instagram. I am an elder millennial. I'm not on the other app, Danielle.stead. I am always thrilled to connect, but the best way to get in touch is not via DMs. I find that DMs are a little difficult to do business in. I know that's not
Mhm.
everyone's preference, but that's mine. So you can go to our website, Danielle Stead Blanton. It is linked online, and you can submit a contact form from there, and we will be in touch.
And we'll also link all of that information in the show notes. And also, if you decide, at the time of this recording, we do still have a few spots left in the accelerator, but Danielle was one of the experts in the accelerator, and I would love to bring her back as a recurring guest expert to talk all things legal. So if you're interested in joining the accelerator where you get to have sessions with Danielle and ask questions like that, you can check out my website as well. And so thank you, Danielle, so much for sharing your expertise. I hope people reach out to her. At the very least, go follow her on Instagram. Just go follow her on Instagram. She drops a lot of really great knowledge. And listen, having a good attorney in your back pocket is never a bad idea. Always 10 out of 10 recommend.
Ah, bring it back. Bring it back.
All right. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you,
Danielle.
Krista. This
And
was
ladies,
awesome.
until next time, bye for now.
Bye.